Friday.
Yes, it is Friday. And so many
Yes,
people
hallelujah.
refer to it. I believe Alleiah is playing some awesome music in the background that
Yes.
we do not have any copyrights to.
We definitely don't. This is the Marcus Kelly Have Your Way album dropped today. And it's a vibe so far.
The Marcus King. I have to check them out.
It's a vibe so far. So we hope you guys are enjoying your Friday. We are going to have an interesting discussion today, which I am excited about. We also have a special guest that will be joining us in just a few.
Yes.
Miss Ciara Ni'Rita.
Like,
So we are excited about this. So we're just gonna give it a little more time.
and if you are on Facebook, Ciara will be on IG, so feel free if you have not already. Follow us on IG at _Kindred Connection, so you will be able to see her as well as hear her.
Yes.
Hear her
Right.
on Facebook, but you want to see her lovely face.
Yeah.
You will also need to join us or switch over
Yes.
to IG. So yes, while we're waiting for people to pop on and all that good stuff, just a quick reminder that we both have devotionals available. This one right here, Killing the Game. I have been reading it and like just getting all kind of little nuggets and just wisdom and yes. So if you have not gotten Monet's Truth 28-day devotional journal, life,
Yeah.
life, I'm telling
Thanks. Yes. All glory to God. You know, He inspired every single word that is in there.
you.
So
good.
glory to Him. But yes, and of course she has ARISE Devotional, which is a 52-week devotional. So you have no excuse. You got all year.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's definitely one of those that will speak to you and that will give you just food for thought, and it will provoke you. Hi. And again, I love the fact that it has space for you to write out your thoughts throughout, because I'm the type that likes to journal.
Yes.
So whenever I read, I pray, and I like to write down any revelations or any thoughts that I get. So I just love that. So if you haven't already gotten you a copy of ARISE Devotional, head over to About Face Collaborative.
Yes.
.com and get you one. So, okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So again, we are Kindred Connection, 2 generations, 1 purpose.
Telling the truth in total transparency.
Yes, and I am Alleiah Monet.
Yes, and I'm Dr. Sha-Lai.
And we have a special guest that will be joining us today that we're super excited to include in this discussion. So you guys know that I'm always on social media. We can. Okay. Let's go ahead.
I'm sure she's gonna have all kind of wisdom and stuff to share.
Let me see.
From the very beginning. Usually we have her come on like halfway through, but I feel like this topic is so. Hello.
I adjust myself. It just look different than what I thought it was gonna look. I'm like, I'm gonna get off and then I'm gonna get back on.
Okay.
Technology.
Right. But again, briefly, just to give you guys an idea of what we're talking about today. So I'm always on social media, and I'm always coming across like these random things that spark a thought in me, and I'm like, we need to talk about that.
Yes.
So my most recent finding Ciara, please let us know when you're ready, and we will put you back on or send a request. But essentially, I saw this post on Facebook that sparked some thought, and I was like, I think I sent it to you right away.
Yeah, it was like late night. I was like, she okay? Oh, okay. She's, okay. A topic for it.
But I'm just going to read the post, and then hopefully Ciara will be ready by then, and we can bring her on and we can get started. So the post was shared by this guy that I'm friends with. And the post said, I was just thinking today that if a woman is a breadwinner or earns more than a man, it shouldn't be known around your circle of friends and his mates. If y'all plan to go out, give him your card to pay. In parentheses, that's if you plan the trip, especially when there's people around. And the friend of mine, I went to college with him, that's all. That's really about it. But he shared it and made the comment that she's a real one. And I instantly, gonna get Ciara back in here. Hi, there she is.
Did you change clothes?
I just moved.
Yes. So again, if you're not following us on Instagram at _ Kindred Connection, we have our guest Ciara Ni'Rita on with us today. And so again, as I was saying in regards to the post, my initial reaction was, see, that's what we're not going to do, is play into a man's insecurities about the woman making more money than him by saying, oh, let me give you my card so that it can look like you got the money and you're going to pay for whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's just, a movie or we're out to eat, whatever it is. So, okay,
cool. Now we like Ciara.
But,
you figure it out.
So we're just going to go ahead and get started with today's discussion. A lot of questions came up for this, and we're super excited again about this topic. So the first question that was posed was, in relationships, does the fact of the woman earning more than the man affect the dynamic of the household? And that question, I'm just going to explain it a little bit really quickly. So that question I posed because I feel like the reason as to why someone made that post and saying that it was a need for the woman to give her card to the man was there's, I guess, an assumption that there's some type of shift in who is the head of the household because she makes more money. So now the question is, again, does the fact that the woman makes more money change the dynamic of the household? Because I feel like there could be some confusion about that. So
I'm gonna let Ciara start off.
Me go. Okay. Y'all know this is one of my favorite topics, relationship. I stay on the relationship topic, but I think we first need to establish that we are assuming that this is a married couple, not just a couple that is cohabitating. I think so that needed to be established for the conversation, because the topic can go either way depending on what type of relationship we're talking about. But for a married couple, it should not matter making more money or not. If I am making more money than my spouse, then it does not negate or change the fact that he is the head of the household. It doesn't affect that at all. Like, there's no footnote in the Bible that says if he makes that's not there. So that's definitely a world thing and a human thing. So not that I do.
So I'm trying not to get ahead because, of course, the three of us.
I was like, I'm trying to do my words wisely so I can
right. So I totally agree. I don't think the dollar amount does not change the position. You know what I'm saying? I could make $1 million and my husband be a stay-at-home dad, and he's still the husband, and I'm still the wife.
Right.
And as Ciara said, from a biblical standpoint, for marriage, he's still the husband, and I'm still the wife.
Yeah.
The zeros behind the income don't change that fact, and so yeah,
Right.
I think that's the foundation we can start with for
Yeah.
the rest of this conversation. For sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I think that'll just take us right into the next question. And I agree with both of them that it does not change the fact that the male is the head of the household, that he's the lead, whether he makes the most money or not. So the next question is, if the woman earns more money than the man, should she then be expected to pay for outings and or dates if she brings in the most income? Because I know typically, in my experience, you go out on a date, like, the expectation is that he's going to pay. At times, I might be, again, I think also it's important to find out that we're talking about married relationships. Because if we're just dating, then I can offer to pay. That's something different. But
Right.
if we're, in a marriage, I make more money, like, I think there's still like this expectation that the man is still supposed to be the one that, leads in that type of circumstance. So
Go ahead, Ciara. Because she be ready. She ready.
I'll chime in on this one because I agree to a certain extent. I have made a decision to take men out. It was for a specific occasion, like a birthday or something like that. Like, you know what? It's my treat. I got you. And even then, it's like I took, and it's happened multiple times where I've taken a guy for his birthday, and he's like, "No, I got, like, dude, this is your birthday." So I think it depends on the caliber of man that we're talking about. Let's go, still try to reach in his pocket no matter what.
yeah.
But I think that in a relationship or in a marriage, I don't think it matters who pays.
Yeah.
I think it matters who pays as far as the dating goes. It depends on what it's looking like.
Right.
If it's a special occasion, then it depends. If I ask a guy out, which depending on who you talk to, if that shouldn't be the case. But if I do, then I think the expectation should be that I pay. Now, if I make a suggestion and then he takes that suggestion and asks me if I want to go, then I would assume that he's paying because he would then ask if I wanted to attend. But I think in dating, if you ask, then you should be expected to pay.
Okay. And that's on both ends.
Yeah, and that's on both ends.
Okay.
Now, that goes, like, if you are, as a woman, if you are choosing to ask, then you are getting into the muddy waters of pursuing a man. So that gets into that realm. However, as a woman, I don't think you can ask and then expect him to turn around. Now, there are some men who will accept your ask and still pay, but the expectation shouldn't be there.
That's good. I like that you made that point because that just makes me think, as women, should we even ever make the offer? Or is that, like, it's not a norm, but, for some women, I think, like you said, with the caliber of men, with some women, like, they are not afraid to make that suggestion or to offer, or to be like, hey, it's your birthday, let me treat you. So I think I'm going to let you answer the first question before I pose the next one, but go ahead.
So I agree, and it would be really interesting to have a guy pop on and give his thoughts. So guys, if you're watching, or ladies, if you know guys who might watch, tell them to watch so they can comment. So now we're talking about two things. So we're talking about marriage and or dating. So if we're talking about dating, then I do agree that it could potentially be tricky. Because I also agree that if I'm the one like, hey, what you doing? You hungry? You want to go get something to eat?
Right.
Then it could be perceived that I am asking you out on a date. I am volunteering to pay for both of our meals. And I'm pursuing. Um, but if I say like we're dating and I'm like I'm hungry. And then you know that means that then you need to say, "Oh, you hungry? You want to go get something to eat?" Bet. Then we good. We say, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's all about how you work.
Right. So
if you pick up where I'm trying to put down, is that you're gonna pay for it.
Right.
I'm like, man, I'm hungry. You like, hey, let's go get something to eat. Then the burden is off of me.
Exactly.
Hey, I could have went in this kitchen and made some cereal or something.
Exactly. So I think there is a way, and ladies, I'm not trying to be shady or tricky or anything like that. But if we're trying to stay under that because we try, and Ciara, I know you talked about this on your podcast, like we try real hard as women to not be pursuing. So, we try to be real conscientious of what we're saying and how we're saying it. So, ladies, I'm not trying to be sneaky or be manipulative or any of those things like that. But if you are trying to be conscientious of the man that found the wife and let him find you, then that might be a way for you to frame it so that you are not in a situation where you feel like you're pursuing him and or setting yourself up to have to pay. Now, if you're married, when you're married, I don't think the original question was if she earns more, should she be expected to pay? And I would say no. Because it goes back to my first answer, which is he's still the husband. And she's still the wife. Yeah. And someone may say, well, in your example, he was a stay-at-home dad. Where his money coming from? He should save his allowance. And be ready to wine and dine. You know what I'm saying? Find a sitter for the kids. And still,
I also think that it kind of touches into like not the married part, because there's a little bit more to that I can say about that one. But in a non-marital relationship situation, because the thing is, you come into, is this someone that you are looking to date? Is it someone that you're just friends with? Because men and women can be, it's very possible for a man and a woman to be a friend. So is it, for me, just like I wouldn't mind paying for a girlfriend's meal. If I'm me and a guy friend, and this is like strictly a platonic guy friend and we're hanging out, if I would do it for my girlfriends, it wouldn't, if he is single too. It's a
make a disclaimer.
It's so many nuances.
If he's also a single friend, then I wouldn't have any issue with treating him just like I would treat a girlfriend. Now, if he is in a relationship or if he's married, then there are some different nuances that come into play because, just me respecting his relationship, I probably wouldn't even necessarily be in that situation. But that's also,
So I was going to ask a question, and this may be more so pertaining to, I guess, when you're not married and you're in that dating phase. Should we, as women, for the sake of maintaining the dynamic and making sure that we aren't the ones pursuing women, should we just refrain from making those types of offers, even if it's to like just a guy friend, just for?
I think so.
No,
I don't think so. I think that it would be. I think that you would miss out on relationships with people in general in that way. Like, I don't think that you should, just because you're a woman, not approach people as people. Like, men are just men. They're going to be, just because there's the potential for something to blossom into, I'm interested in you type of dynamic, it doesn't necessarily have to start there. It can literally start as a good, wholesome, God-fearing, this my brother in Christ, we hang out because we like each other's company. I feel like the best relationships start as friends. So if we can't be friends and treat each other as brothers and sisters in Christ and respect each other's boundaries in that way, then because I don't think that it has to be I'm a woman and I'm a Christian and I can't talk to men at all because potential that life doesn't go from talking to you and now we hunching. Like it does, there's a lot that goes in between there. So you can't assume that every man that you come in contact with is then going to turn into a relationship. Some will just be. But I don't think that you have to refrain from those type of relationships with me.
And I totally agree. I mean, whether it is a platonic relationship or someone you're dating, when you're married, you're still going to do nice things for your husband. Right. You're still going to, get gifts or have surprises, or if his love language is So it doesn't preclude us being the woman and them being the man doesn't preclude us from spending money. Right. That's not what we're saying. It was the the thought of so now I gotta pretend like you make more money. Right. But I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman, as Ciara said, as a friend, I'm treating you to this, or as a dating relationship, it's your birthday, or I just want to do something nice for you, or fiance or husband, money can still be spent for sure. Right. And then Tia made the comment, the misconception is as a woman we can't talk to guys and it strictly be a friendship. Right. Yeah. Like people say all the time, if I say hey to you in the store, I ain't trying to holler. I'm just black power, I'm just being friendly.
Just because you see me smiling, don't mean turn around and don't.
Right. This wasn't that. I wasn't inviting you to anything.
That's when you try to not make eye contact. Because as soon as you lock eyes, you like, oh man.
Right, here we go.
Right. They think that and opened up a door. No, I'm just friendly. I smile at everyone. But I agree. I think it can get tricky again, just depending on the people. But I agree that, even as women, like she mentioned, even when we get in a relationship or once we're married, we still have to show those acts of kindness and generosity just just to, show our affection and our love and just appreciation for the person. So I totally agree with that point. So the next question is, and this may or may not affect the answer to the previous question, and probably, we'll see. But the next question is, do you agree with or support the idea of joining finances? Why or why not? And if so, or depending on the answer to that question, how does that affect your answer to the previous question? And mainly this question is for married couples only. Okay.
For sure.
Because we're not doing that if we're not married.
Okay. That is our personal preference. Now, y'all may do what you
do what you want to do.
But we're saying, in our opinion,
it's not reflected.
Right. We don't want anybody saying that's what they said.
Right.
This is our opinion.
Right.
Go ahead, Ciara. You was going to say.
So, the opinion of Ciara Ni'Rita here on Caden Conversations does not necessarily reflect the opinions of no. But I think that yes, I think if you are married, your finances should be combined. It all should go into the pot. Mm-hmm. I think that it is a grave mistake to try to combine finances before that time. Mm-hmm. I think that it can create a lot of issues, and if you are not some people have not made it to the altar that have decided to combine their finances, and then that gets into some really sticky situations. Mm-hmm. But as a married couple, yes, I feel like every married couple should have combined finances. Now, what that looks like in totality for every couple could be different. Mm-hmm. So it could be me and my husband decide we got one pot. we paying everything from one pot. We giving each other allowances out of one pot. Like, we making decisions out this one pot. It could be we got one pot and then we got, a couple of separate pots where our separate allowances go into these pots, and that's the money that we play with individually. But if we're going, like, there's so many different dynamics to it, but ultimately, I feel like it should all go into one pot. The only exception I think there should be to that rule is if one spouse has a significant issue that could potentially cause financial harm. That means if there is like a gambling problem, or if there is a drug problem, if there is something that could potentially cause this household to lose finances or some type of financial strain or issues, then in that situation, I think that even if the money is combined, then everybody don't necessarily need to have access to it.
So, okay, Tia said, what do y'all think about separate savings accounts? That's a good question. That is a good question. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm gonna try to think of my thought. I lost it.
I'll touch it real quick. I love to talk. But to answer her question, I think that with separate savings account, I think it's fine. It goes into that what I was just saying about having a pot and then potentially having separate accounts that y'all can play with. But I think that both spouses, now this is considering that the relationship is a wholesome, everybody is loving each other the right way type of relationship. I think that it is okay to have separate savings account, but you need to have access to the accounts, because you don't want to have a situation where I'm potentially saving more than what I'm letting my husband think that I'm saving. And so then you get into hiding money. So when you get into hiding money, then you automatically, you ain't doing right. So I think that if you have separate savings account, then you need to have complete disclosure about what's going into the amount. We need to still, those separate savings accounts need to be a part of the financial conversation that we have on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever amount of time. Those accounts need to be brought to the table with the receipts and the statements, all of it. You don't want to get into a situation where it's like, okay, so where do you get this extra $5 from?
Right.
You trying to leave me? Like, it's been my whole issue.
Right. No, I definitely agree. And in reference to what you were saying before about in regards to like joint finances, and you mentioned like the idea of someone having a gambling problem, I'm like, well, is this something that develops after you got married, or you decided to marry a person with a gambling problem? Like, so I think that's just an important note to take, that we should be evaluating at least at some point before we get married, like what each other's like spending habits are like and things like that, because you don't even want to be in that type of circumstance to where now someone could be potentially dependent on you because they have a gambling problem, and either you knew it or you didn't know it, but now they're like, ooh, can I get this? I'm like, but where your money go? So I think it's because I've been in situations like that. I'm just like, what are you spending your money on? And again, whether it's gambling or it's drugs, it's just like, now I'm in a position to where you're coming to me asking for money, but it's like, if we're on the same accord, and if we're the same mindset, we understand each other's spending habits and they're not like something drastic, then I think we're on a level playing field, like you said, and there is no, can I get this to do this, and we should just talk about that before we take that step. So, did you have anything I'm reading?
So I agree. Right. I agree that it is a conversation that should be had before you get married, for sure. Because as Ciara was saying, joint could mean different things to different people. Yeah. And it could look different in different relationships. So one example I think of is like my grandparents. So, both my grandfather and my grandmother worked. I'm assuming they had a conversation before they got married. My grandfather was like, "You got this."
Yeah.
So he would give her his check, went into the account. My grandma gave my
like
grown grandfather an allowance, and he did with it what he wanted. But she took care of all the bills and all of that stuff. She handled that. That was the agreement that they made. And there could be, I'm sure there are other marriages where all the money goes into one pot, or like the other example that was given, and I've heard people say this, like, we have a joint account, but we also have our individual accounts. And we split the bills 50-50. So half of the money goes into our joint account. Your half of the money goes into the joint account. Any money outside of that, that's your money. It's my money.
Yeah.
You're good. So I feel like if it's something that the couple has discussed, and they're in agreement, then there is no right or wrong answer. Right. It's however they want it to be. I know we are all saying some level of joint should happen.
Yeah.
But there are also couples where it's not like that.
Right.
Like, they have two totally separate accounts, and they just happen to split the bills.
Yeah.
Like, they pay bills like roommates.
You got the cable,
right?
And
if that works, if that works for them, then that works for them.
Yeah.
I think with that though goes to the point Ciara was making about being transparent about that. Like, if you were going to have something separate, then they should at least know. Maybe, I don't know.
Right.
Again, depends on the conversation.
Yeah.
That I have this money over here or this over here, or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever works for them. I think that could get. That's another one of those like tricky things, because I think it could just depend on the relationship and what they feel comfortable with. So,
and Tia made a comment. She wanted our thoughts on. She said she was listening to this podcast where a girl said that hers was separate, and she said that she always thought everything was to be joint.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I saw a question pop up. I don't know if you asked it, but something about a 401k.
Yeah, Rochella. And even with that caused me to think, in regards to, especially with all of us being like entrepreneurs, what about any business accounts that we accumulate in our singleness? Like, what does that look like once you get married? Like, is that something that he just knows about? And even vice versa, because men can have their own as well. Is that something that the other person just knows about? Do they have access to it? Do it needs to become like we're both investing in the same thing? Because we can have different jobs that can have different, investments. So what does that look like? Any investments or business income, business accounts, things like that?
Well, I think that like investments like 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, right, Roth IRAs, those type of accounts. Typically, those are accounts that are done through your employer, so those would kind of automatically be separated. Yeah. But I think that those accounts, although yes, you should definitely be doing those. That's getting into legacy building and retirement preparation. So you should be investing in those accounts. But again, those accounts, those statements, those things need to be brought to the table so that both of you have an idea of what is your retirement looking like, and because that'll get into a conversation of when can we actually retire, or when we be available. When those, I think that the whole financial conversation needs to happen pre-marriage. And then throughout the entire process of being married. And then the other part of that was, what was the second part of that? You said investment.
Business income. So let's say you're an entrepreneur, you established yourself.
I think that if you are an entrepreneur and you have a business that is generating any kind of income or making any kind of purchases, so if you have any kind of money coming in or out, you need to have an established business account. That is before or after marriage. Whenever you create the business, create the account. And then again, it's just that account is not necessarily your account, it's your business's account. So that money needs to be handled properly as a business for tax purposes and all those other things. And so as far as your spouse having access to it, is your spouse employed with the business? Would you give access to any of your employees that have, that are protecting your business? And now, access is one thing, but knowledge is another. So yes, your spouse should absolutely have knowledge of the accounts. Your spouse should know, because essentially, if this business is creating income, your spouse should know how much more money or how much less money is coming in or going out because of this business. Because if it's a money that is being taken from y'all, then there needs to be a conversation between the spouses, like, okay, is this business something that we want to continue to do and invest in? Because it could be bleeding y'all dry. But if it's something that's actually generating income or something that you should probably continue, that's a conversation to say, like, okay, this business is now starting to create income for us. Right. How much income is this creating, and how much are we getting paid from this income? Right. So I think that having access to the money is it depends on how you structure the business, but having knowledge of what's the goings and coming is necessary.
NBA's coming out. Y'all ain't know. She ain't just winging it. She knows what she's talking about. Yes. So and we're a little off topic, but not. But not. No, it's still important because it's talking about finances, and I think something that was said that was really important. And by the way, Ciara's website is thelegacyarena.com, so you can continue to get this information from her and check out her podcast, Cake and Conversations. But I think a lot of times when we think about marriage and finances, it generates a lot of issues of like trust and insecurity and maybe feelings from past relationships. And so it's all of these things going on. Yeah. And one thing that is helpful, and I am preaching to myself too, is a lot of this really bottom line is just about legacy. And it's about like next steps. So if I believe that the Lord has said that you're my spouse, whether it's, you're my husband or you're my wife or whatever, then I also have to believe God got this. And I have to trust that whatever may have happened in past relationships is not going to happen in this relationship. So I can't treat this relationship based on fear I have from something else that happened, because we need to know all this stuff for the future. Like, God forbid something happened to me. Well, if Marcus isn't on the accounts, or if he's not, POD, and which is paid on death, right, Ciara?
I know she's gonna explain this acronym.
I am. But I wanted to make sure that I was gonna say it right. But POA. So if these things aren't in place, then I'm not taking care of my legacy responsibilities. Because now this money that I'm hoarding or saving or prepping is gonna go to the state, because I haven't done what I needed to do. That's good. Because I was scared to put them on the account. I was scared to tell them I had this. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's one thing for us to consider in general, is that if something happened to me, my spouse, my children, if you're not married, need to be able to get this money. Right. So let me do all of the things that I need to do to prepare for that. Yeah. If and when that happens. Yeah. So sometimes we just got to take the emotion out of it and do the practical things. Yeah. So that we're covered in the future. So I just want to say that.
That's a really good point. And I hadn't thought about that, but I think that is a really good point. Because in my line of work, I've had many people call in and say, oh, well, my husband, he just passed, and he was the one that handled the taxes for the past 20-some years, and now the wife don't know what to do, or even in some instances, vice versa, and they're like, oh, well, he handled all of this, or she handled all of this, and yeah. So it's like this big old headache, and I think it's important to, again, have that transparency in the relationship, and even if someone is, let's say, better in or would prefer to handle the finances, so they are the ones that know everything, like your grandma. So in those instances, I think it's still like good for both spouse to be involved. So in the event that anything happens, we're not trying to figure out what to do, or we're not like, we're not seeing our money just fly out the window because we didn't set up things the right way. So I think that was a very great point. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, that's definitely if you are someone, like she said, POD, which is paid on death, or POA, which is power of attorney. If you need these things in place, make sure you have them in place. And that gets into a whole nother conversation of like doing wills and all of that other stuff. Just make sure y'all finances and stuff is in order, because you don't know, tomorrow is not promised.
That's good. That's good. All right. So the next question kind of goes back up towards the beginning of the discussion. So this question is it okay for others to know if the woman makes more money than the man, and or is it necessary? Because again, with the post that was made, it's presenting it as if other people know who makes more money in the relationship, and it's like, well, this nobody needs to know. So whether if I hand out a card or whether he hands out a card, like if we're together, this is our money, especially if we're a married couple and everything is joint, this is our money. So it shouldn't matter who gives the card. Like it doesn't need to be, because he the man, let me make sure I give it to him. It's just like nobody needs to know, and it's not necessary, in my opinion, that other people need to know who makes the more money. It's like, if y'all cool, nobody else needs to know. So
yeah, I agree. And why? But why? Exactly. Why everybody got it? Why? Now, you can get into situations because it can be assumed, you can assume that I make more than my spouse, or my spouse makes more than me, but you don't necessarily have to know. Knowing means that you have heard it from the horse's mouth. Right. Like, I don't have to discuss that, my husband make less than me, or, vice versa, whatever. Like, that should not be a conversation. Right. And where, my question is, where would that conversation come from? Like, that conversation would only come from a place of frustration. And that place of frustration is not even a conversation you need to be having with your friends. That's a therapy conversation. So there's absolutely no reason. And if we're married, and going back to the previous, and our finances are combined, no matter who bring in what amount, the account should be joint. So I do know that there are a lot of situations where, like, the wife carries a purse, and so, cards and money and stuff is in her purse, and it's like, oh, okay, here, babe. Like, but that's my business. If I just, like, don't assume that I'm paying because I'm sliding my husband a card or cash or whatever. It could just be that I'm carrying it. But,
and that's no one else's business. So I don't get why there is a need, or this idea that there needs to be some type of show or facade that he needs to pay. Like, it don't matter. And if I want to pay, I'm gonna pay. But at the end of the day, like you said, if we're in a married relationship, it's coming from the same account. So whether I give the card or whether he gives the card, it really don't matter. But other people, have their own ideas of how things should go or look and be. So
right. Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I was sitting here, it's making me think of this movie. I can't think of the name of it now, but I know Kevin Hart is in it. And they're at this restaurant, and he can't afford to pay for the food, so he has to figure out a way to pay, but he doesn't want to ask his girlfriend to pay, so it becomes this whole thing. But I think that in regards to the scenario from the post that prompted this whole discussion, so let's say my husband has a job that people assume doesn't make a lot of money, right? And I have a job that people assume makes a lot of money. Did we lose here? Okay. So like that's where I feel like maybe these kind of things are coming from, because most of us aren't like, hey, I make
Right.
this amount of money and my husband makes this or vice versa. Those conversations, generally speaking, aren't happening.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a lot of presumption going on about finances and those kind of things. So stop trying to guess. Just it is what it is. But then the post was kind of like, as a matter of respect. So out of respect for Bay.
Yeah.
If you happen, woman, to make more money than him, don't show him up because we at this restaurant that he maybe can't afford to pay for the food. So let me slide you this card or get him the card before we even get to the restaurant.
Right.
So he can pay so that the Joneses think all is well. And I'm like, I'm with y'all. Like, that's too much. That's chess, right?
Yeah.
I'm a checkers kind of girl. Like, that's too many moving pieces to try to figure out. Like, whether our accounts are combined or not, the food gonna get paid for.
Right.
So why does it matter? which account, which card, who hands, blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't. Yeah. Like, it really, really doesn't. Like, that post, like Alleiah said when she sent it to me initially, is really more so about insecurity. It really has nothing to do with finances.
Exactly.
It really has nothing to do with a relationship. It really has nothing to do, like, it really just is you feeling some kind of way. Right. And you don't wanna.
Right. Like, that screams nothing but insecurity. Right. And then it also assumes that he's insecure about it. Like, why are the surrounding people assuming that my spouse or my boyfriend or whoever it is that's next to me partaking in this meal has this type of, like, his ego is that fragile, or that he would be offended from not sliding him my card. Right. Like, I feel like a man would be more offended by me being like, here I got this. Like, no, I'm cool.
No, definitely. And I just think, even like the post also, it was a guy who shared the post and he made the comment that she's a real one because she was willing to do something like that. And I'm just like,
my bad, I had to take it off there.
No, you're good. And we're kind of gonna start wrapping up too. This is really good, but I think as a woman, like, we have to be able to identify those things within the people that we're friends with or that we're interested in. Because if you're in a position to where you feel like you have to do that, like you said, it has nothing to do with finances. We need to figure out where the insecurity is coming from, and we need to figure out, like, this has nothing to do with money. This has to do with you and your ego or your insecurities and everything like that. Because we as women, we will, think that we have to do something like that to feed into a man's pride, to make him feel, macho or whatever. But it's just like, no, if we have to, evaluate and make sure that there's an understanding that doesn't matter. If we're secure in who we are, secure in our relationship, secure in just everything, then it's like, it doesn't matter. We also shouldn't be caring about what other people on the outside think, because then now that's a whole nother conversation. So yeah.
I completely agree with everything. Like, we can't feed into, and it also speaks to, like, the stereotypes that the world has developed around the dynamics of men and women in relationships and finances. It's like, who said that it had to be that way? Like, who said that a male's ego has to, like, as a woman, I have to, like, be that, what's the word I'm looking for? Of a male's ego. Like, why is that burden on me to pay attention to how he feels? Like, his feelings is his business. Like, the only way his feelings are my business is if we are married. And in that situation, if you feel that fragile because of a paying situation or a financial situation, then we got bigger issues, because that's a conversation that we didn't have before we got married. And now this is a conversation that we now need to have in the midst of a marriage which means we need to be in therapy.
Yeah.
we got big problems that brewing because I mean we all know that financial issues is one of the primary reasons why people get divorced. Exactly. It's like these are conversations that people are not having before they say I do, because you're so smitten and so head in the clouds that you're not having the pertinent conversations that once the dust settles and it's me and you in the house, you know, if it's just me and you and we ain't got no kids in the house, then what? Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to live? Like, what do our finances look like? These are conversations, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have for whatever reason. I don't know. I like to talk about money, so I'm nosy. I'll be like, so how much you make? Like,
so what can we do?
No, but that's so good, and we're gonna totally have to do a part 2. To this particular conversation about, you know, relationships and finances and what that looks like, because the person who shared it, like you said, you know, she's the real one. Okay, so let's break this down. So she's the real one because she's willing to slide the card to you, or give the appearance that you're balling and you're not, or you're paying and you're not. And my thought was, so now we're equating the real one with possibly an enabler. So now we're equating the real one with a person who's just gonna let you slide.
Come on.
I mean,
what's my struggle love in this conversation? No longer do that.
In my mind, the real one is either one gonna be cool with where you are, and if where you are is McDonald's, let's go to McDonald's.
Exactly.
We're not going to Ruth Chris if you can't handle that right now, and that's cool. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. And or, you know what I'm saying? And or the real one is gonna be like, hey, babe, if you feeling some kind of way that I make more money, what we need to do to help you get in a position to make more money? Yes. You need to go back to school, because I'll slide you the card to pay for you to go back to school and take some classes. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to help you with the come up. Yeah. But we're not just going to play games with.
That's good.
Where we are. Like, that's the real one. That's part 2 of this conversation. Talk about it. Yes. That's the real one.
to an Instagram live near you.
You know what I'm saying? We gonna be on the come up. That's the real one.
That's for real. No, that's a very good point, because, oh Jesus, we're not gonna do that.
Help us, Lord.
We're not gonna do that.
No. Women, that whole real one, like, that's right along them same lines with that ride or die. That's right along them same lines with that struggle and love. Right along them same line. Like, who in the ghetto decided that this is okay? Like, at some point, we have to elevate past these type of thinking and these lines, this baby boy line of thought. Like, this ain't movies, it's real life, and at the end of this day, we ain't got no credits rolling. We gotta pay bills. Like,
exactly. Didn't they just make a song? Isn't that what that song that I don't know what the song is, but I keep seeing the acronym for it? Isn't that kind of what this is like? You ain't seen it? I don't know. You ain't seen
what you talking about.
It's some song with something Cardi B maybe. Oh. And WAP, I don't know what it stands for, but apparently it's
that's a whole other conversation.
They don't have nothing to do with finances.
I'll tell you later.
Oh, but here's the thing. But it does have to do with not holding a man to the level of accountability. Okay, well that's not what the post is saying.
We gonna figure it out. We gonna talk about it. We gonna come back.
I'm gonna stick to it. Even if I listen to the song, I'm gonna stick to it, because the general thing is, and I may be showing my age and different generation and ignorance, and I'm okay with that. Is that I'm allowing somebody to be not their best self, and I'm good with that. That's the general premise of what I gather from what I read. Why you know the songs here? Why you know the songs here? Let's talk about that.
Sometimes you just gotta do it for the culture. Because I have older teenagers, and I need to be well versed in the things of the teenage life. So that when stuff comes across my earwaves, I know what they're talking about.
Got you. Got you. Well, yeah. Y'all gonna have to enlighten me because I don't know.
Well, Ciara gonna have to enlighten both of us.
I got y'all covered after this.
But yeah, I was gonna make the last comment that we as women, I think we have so much power than we know that we do, and in this day and age, there's so much confusion and so much, misunderstandings or misconceptions about, what the dynamic of a marriage is supposed to be. And I think, we've talked about this before, how even sometimes with the way that we're raised as women, like I was raised by a single mom, so that can kind of play into how we date or how we grow up and, deal with other relationships. And we find ourselves in circumstances that, are just not good for us because we didn't have anyone to show us different, or we didn't, exude the power that we have, but instead we let this man do whatever he want to do. So, again, I think we just have to recognize and tap into that power that we have as women so that we can help our brothers as well, because they were raised some kind of way too and don't know. So we as women, if we are the ones that, not say that all women are, but if we have to sometimes be the ones to like call it out and say, let's actually talk about this because this is something deeper than what we're dealing with at the surface right now. So, but yeah, so thank you again, Ciara.
Before you leave, Ciara, shout out your website, your podcast, all of the things.
Please do.
So my Instagram is Ciara Ni'Rita. Podcast is Cake and Conversations. I always post about it on my Instagram, and my website is thelegacyofrena.com. You can find the podcast on really anywhere that you can find podcasts: Spotify, Apple, all the rest of them.
Yes. Cool.
Okay.
We look forward to it. You guys go follow her. We really appreciate her joining us on this nice discussion.
Yes.
And we will put together a part 2.
Yes.
And come back in and discuss more of this because we're not done. So
too much to talk about in one little hour.
I know. But again, we thank you for coming on with us, and we look forward to having you again.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, that was good.
Man, it's good.
That was good. So, again, we do thank you guys for joining us this evening. And for chiming in. This was a very, very good conversation. And again, we will come back with a part 2 to finish. So we can talk about what Sha-Lai mentioned. So, again, I am Alleiah Monet.
Yes.
And
website. Say website.
Monet'sTruth.com. Please check that out. You can catch up on my latest blog, A Hopeless Romantic. You can also purchase your 28-day devotional, which is available for sale now. So please go ahead, check out the website. Follow me at Alleiah Monet. And yeah. So,
Dr. Sha-Lai here. So website aboutfacecollaborative.com. Instagram at dr_Sha-Lai. Also devotional journals, t-shirts like the one that I'm on today. Mugs, all kind of stuff, events. Just check out the website, and we would love to hear from you.
Yeah. So again, guys, we thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you again. So again, this is Kindred Connection, 2 generations, 1 purpose.
Telling the truth in total transparency.
Bye.